Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Trap Drop Podcast. I am TC, and I'm feeling intangibly rich this morning. And I'm joined, as always, by my esteemed colleague, Mr. Big Randy. Sir, how are you?
I'm great. Hello, good morning to you, BallKnowers, Tron. God, I had fears that Trevor was going to go down in the pocket, be touched down, the clock was going to run out, and that was going to be a devastating loss. But you guys rocked it. Never a doubt in Trevor and Coach Cohen and the Jacksonville Jaguars. What a win. I'm sorry to the Chiefs fans. I know it must hurt. You know, you thought you had the game-winning interception there only to be flagged for DPI. That must really, really hurt Chiefs fans. So my sincere apologies.
We'll get there. We'll definitely kick the Chiefs a little bit while they're down. But before that, I want to introduce, he's back for more. Sensei Sturm.
The schematics sensei.
Heck yeah. How you doing, boys?
We're good. I mean,
great.
You've got to be great. Your Brewers are absolutely flashing right now.
Oh, it's that time of year where usually we're one and done in these playoffs. It's obviously we're blessed to be in the playoffs on a regular basis, but now our appetite's a little bigger. Not too big, reasonable. But if we can just get that doggone Chicago scalp, I think I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
America will be happy.
That's what we want.
And really, like, they're just sticking into the Data Boys right now. The Data Boys cannot explain the Brewers' ways. And
how's Sally feeling about Cheerio now? Is he still
he's in shambles?
He's got very little.
Shambles.
That's what I like to see. I don't know how we keep doing it. It doesn't make any sense. We just every day we just go out there and drive them crazy on the base paths. I mean, there's no way to explain this in the sabermetrics, guys.
It's a bit of chaos. It's chaos. It's old school baseball. It's fundamentally sound baseball. It's nice to see, Bob. It really is.
Here's to Pat Murphy.
Hey man, we've got a Seamsters episode later this week. 2 trap draws this week. We got BallKnowers today. We got Seamsters later in the week. We do have to thank our good friend Mr. Jeezy,
of course,
as well, for everything. And then a lot of people have been asking for Randy and I's power rankings of the U.S. Secretaries of Transportation. We're still grinding on that. We're still working on that. We're still doing our research. We're not ready for you yet. We also had the idea to work up a first team all nebbish NFL roster as well, of just kind of nebbish players, the best at their positions. We're also monitoring air traffic control this week. We've got the government shutdown. Eric Adams flew to Albania, so just monitoring that. He flew on Lufthansa. He did not fly on Turkish Airlines. A lot going on in EA world. We'll get there on a future ep. There's a big snowstorm on Everest. Bunch of climbers trapped up there. I haven't gotten the latest on that, but monitoring that.
Bob, real quick.
Yeah.
Yes,
Bob,
sir.
Any desire, forget about the feasibility, forget about it all. Any desire for you to climb Mount Everest?
Yeah, I think that's me. I think I am the guy I am the suburban white guy that has a fancy for a wilderness adventure that I'm not capable of pulling off. But yeah, it's in there somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, I was just
Is that crazy?
No, well, to me it is. I would never, but
I just think it's unsporting at this point you basically have a chauffeur.
Right. Yeah.
Up, all the way up with the Sherpas and
I don't actually
work.
I don't really want to jeopardize myself. I just want to feel like I might be sort of jeopardizing myself. This is the white suburban mid-50s adventure, I think, is that you simulate cheating death or Mother Nature. And that's really all I want to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Also, Cody sent over this video on the gram this morning to me of this Chihuahua. It was adopted by a pack of wolves, and like a Ring camera caught it like at night, just this Chihuahua running around with all these wolves. It was like the coolest energy I've ever seen. So, that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to shout it out.
But it is being monitored, just to be clear.
It is being monitored. And then, listen, I had to throw in a couple college football. While Bill Napier just refuses to die down here in Florida.
I think much to the chagrin of Gator fans.
I'm going to
Offense
see him
looked a
this
lot
weekend,
better.
boys. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, he'll be at Kyle Field on Saturday, and so will I.
Oh,
So,
I forgot you're an Aggie these
so
days.
yeah, I'm not actually one. My daughter
It's an
is.
Aggie parent.
Yeah, my money goes to A&M. How's that?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. No, Elko. We were fans of Elko before he took that job.
He's a dude.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, TC.
And then just a quick yes or no. Is Arch super mid? Or are you long on Arch?
Man,
yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see him going from here to there. So yes, I am wildly disappointed. There's more wrong with Texas than Arch, but right now he just doesn't see the field, and I'm usually out on guys who don't see the field. So I didn't really give you a yes or no, but you have to
like a no.
You have to squint to see.
It sounds like a yes that he's mid.
Yeah,
he is tough. I'll give him that. He
tough.
Stands in there. He's just not accurate either. Like there's just not a lot of accuracy going on.
Yeah, we were sold that he was much higher, much more well educated in the craft of quarterback than he's shown to be so far.
Yeah. Are you bullish or bearish on the Jerry Neuheisel era at UCLA?
The bar is low at UCLA, so I let's see more of it. But that was certainly unexpected, to say the least.
Awesome.
It was.
I hate nuts. Penn State. Penn State's right there with Kansas City Chiefs for me, as far as just depraved, sick individuals. Just a bad fan base. James Franklin's a lunatic moron. I reveled in that this weekend.
That's what we're looking for. Although I feel like you've reveled openly against A&M for quite a while. So I
for sure. Know. But that's the problem. They were so much more hateable before Elko got there. Yeah, now they're just weird again.
I don't even think they're malicious. They're just weird.
We call it tradition in some places. If you can't honor decades long traditions, then that's on you.
Well, speaking of traditions, we have a tradition here on the Trap Draw, which is, of course, always presented by ServPro, #1 brand in cleanup and restoration, known for making any mess like it never even happened. You have over 2,200 locations nationwide. They're faster than any size disaster. ServPro is here to help 24/7. Just call 1-800-ServPro or visit servpro.com. What do we need to clean up, Randy?
Well, I mean, football specific. Been a tough couple weeks. I was, last time we talked with Bob, I was still very high on both the Ravens and the Los Angeles Chargers. The Ravens look lost right now. Lamb being out does not help. The Chargers, that's a little tougher. They lost Joe Alt, so now they're down Slater and Joe Alt. I think they're just having offensive line issues. I'm not giving up on ball heavy yet there, but a mea culpa for perhaps being a little too bullish yet on both of those clubs. TC,
I think Hampton's going to go on the IR too. They're going to Miami this weekend. That'll be a weird matchup. Listen, I think yeah.
No, sorry. I last Monday I sat through the Bengals' performance out here in Denver on Monday night against the Broncos. If anybody in the Bengals organization would like to offer me an apology for witnessing what, I don't know, it didn't really look like professional football much of the time, I would certainly accept an apology.
That would be big of them. Bob, do you have an apology as far as, again, to Sean Payton for slagging him off?
Man, that's some psycho stuff if you're going for two. When it's 17-16 in Philadelphia with 7 minutes to go. I have to admit, the more I follow this sport, the more I realize there are two types of coaches: those who have the freaking stones to do crazy things that might just work, and those that don't. And he clearly is that guy, given onside kick in the Super Bowl and going for two in Philadelphia, even though that felt completely psycho, but he pulls it off often enough that it might actually raise the level of his teams, and I think that's what coaching's probably all about. And frankly, something that might hold back the Packers right now is that I think they have a coach that is pretty worried about job security. If I were to throw that out there, so you know what? It's a modified apology to Sean Payton. I still think he lives in Mike McCarthy's neighborhood, but I'm willing to at least consider new materials here.
You also think that Mike McCarthy lives in a much nicer neighborhood than I think everybody else does.
Well, no, I mean, I don't really care if pop culture thinks that Mike McCarthy is fat, if that's what you're saying. But Mike McCarthy has done a ton of things.
Football games.
He's won a ton of
like
football
Jimmy G.
games.
He's just a winner.
I'm not going to the beach with him, but if I need a guy that's going to get my team to double-digit wins every single season, no matter who's hurt and no matter what he has at his disposal, I think Mike McCarthy's great at it, and I think he's done it now in multiple places. So. You know, not everybody wins a Super Bowl, TC.
That's true. I mean, Kyle's never won a Super Bowl, you know?
Not yet.
People tell me that all the time. Neil was demanding an apology and a mea culpa from everyone for his Pats this week. A long way to go. I don't think anybody was, other than maybe some malicious Bills fans were really getting after him, but I don't think we slagged off the Pats.
No, I don't either. I thought he drafted them pretty high in our team draft. Now that might end up being a good pick, but oh boy, were those pads popping in Buffalo. I told these guys I was so impressed with the Patriots defense, just their ability to tackle. You don't see that many good tackling teams anymore.
Yeah, I know the Patriots were great. That was a fun game. Bucks Seahawks was a fun game. So, you know, sometimes the weekend looks pretty spare, and then you get to it and you're like, okay, this is good stuff. So taste the soup every Sunday, and usually you find something pretty good.
I will say real quick on that Patriots front, you know, if they can win on the road, they go to New Orleans, they go to Tennessee, and then they have the Browns at home. I mean, it is conceivable they could get to 6-2 and really be in the thick for the AFC East, let alone the playoffs.
God, you know, Vrabel wants to go into Nashville and just beat the hell out of them too. What a dumpster fire they are, and the fact that they got a win this week just felt so cheap.
That's a good one though. With the Patriots, can Vrabel take the training wheels completely off Drake May all the time? Like, I think they're pretty careful with him usually, and that started opening up as the second half went going, especially when they're rolling him out. But as a regular disposition, which you need, you kind of have to trust your quarterback, and I think they're getting there. But I also think Vrabel's been a pretty conservative coach over the course of time, and Josh McDaniel may actually feed into that a little bit. But they showed me some stuff Sunday night I wasn't expecting.
Randy, any comment on your guy Brian Callahan getting his first dub of the season?
Love to see it. You know, you take the wins where you can get them. Sometimes they fall in your lap, and good teams take advantage of situations like that. TC, great to see my guy BC get one.
Just incredible that they chose to move on from Mike Vrabel to go to Brian Callahan.
It really is incredible.
Where you at?
I know there was more to it.
Gannon's got some questions to answer, Bob. That's
you might have to mea culpa there, right? Some apologies.
That's tough. I mean, what do you think? You can squint and look at it one way and say, gosh, they could be 5-0 with a couple of different plays. Or you could almost say like, oh God, they could be 0-5 if things didn't quite go their way the first 2 weeks. It's a weird team. I think it starts at the quarterback position. No matter how much you try to talk yourself into Kyler Murray, he's just never. I don't know. I just never trust him. He just is not that guy for me.
And beyond that, Marvin Harrison 2.0 looks like Kyler can't trust him on top of that. So there's just layers. Like I watched the game a couple weeks ago. That was the Thursday night game, right? When they wore those crazy uniforms, and Marvin Harrison, like that was one of the worst performances I've seen from a wide receiver in recent memory.
Yeah. You know, it's to me, it's quarterback and coach in this league, and they're in too good of a division to be lacking in either. And you want to talk about mid. I would put them both mid tier. You know, Kyler's too far into this to make some of these stupid plays that he makes, and he just doesn't have the attention to detail that I'm looking for. And then the coach, I'm not positive that Jonathan Gannon is up on the tier he needs to be to compete with Shanahan and McVay and that group. So I don't see the Cardinals being a factor, and I really never have with those two guys running things, or Kyler and Cliff. I never saw it there. So I, if any team needs a transformative hire at that most important position, I would think it's Arizona.
Yeah.
Speaking of Kyle, what a masterclass. I mean,
so hand up here. The Thursday night game. I was not able to watch this Thursday night game. I was on the road in Milwaukee, and so
I hope I
saw the final score. Yeah, I've got the all 22. I've got the actual film on its way being delivered. I'm gonna put it in the projector. Yeah, so we're gonna break tape later this week. TC.
He was doing some pretty exotic bit with motions, and just like Poosh has been sending over some things that Kyle's in his bag right now. I mean,
he's great at what he does. I would love to hire him for my organization anytime he's available. And I just, you don't have to talk me into Kyle Shanahan knowing ball. He's great at it. Now, do we get carried away at times? Maybe, but and does he get carried away at times? At times I think hubris might be his big enemy, but he's absolutely on it from a scheme standpoint most of the time.
Sometimes I wish he would get more carried away. Sometimes he doesn't get carried away enough. It's too conservative.
Well, I would just say what I mean by that, though, is sometimes personnel decisions more than scheme decisions. Like there's a level of my scheme is so good I don't need this guy, or that sort of thing. That's where sometimes it gets away from a guy, forgetting that Bill Walsh knew that he probably needed Joe Montana and Jerry Rice to make his brilliance come to life.
So good segue into a question I had for either of you. Just looking at the box score from Thursday, but now seeing Mac Jones across 3 games. Like if Kyle's scheme is somewhat quarterback agnostic, I just go back to, did they need to sign Brock to that big extension? Like, are they in a weird spot where they don't need the expensive quarterback? It just is an interesting question to me.
I think you need the guy that you can trust, though. I still don't think they can trust Mac Jones. And I think the floor is a lot higher with Brock. He's proven that. I think there's a much higher level of comfort. He can play the full offense, whereas I feel like they're having to scheme for Mac. Bob, am I off there?
No, I think that's exactly right. And I think Purdy is a limited quarterback, and I think he's very similar in some ways, but they get there different ways with Jalen Hurts, in that to play winning football, I need a trustworthy quarterback who's not going to do the dumb things that get us beat. And that's really what football is at its core, is can we make fewer dumb mistakes than our opponent? And, we want to attack, but we also are not going to give games away. And once Brock Purdy demonstrates a trustworthiness on that level, locking him up to a market value deal is not the craziest thing in the world, especially since you have zero concerns about his personal life and about, just the locker room part of it. And, just like Jalen Hurts. I mean, these guys, in many ways, they're a carbon copy of each other. They really are. They're sons of coaches. They were dinged as prospects. They were, kind of ruled out by the football intelligentsia time and time again, and hand in the air on that. But really, what their superpower always is they do not beat themselves. And so all of the discards from a Shanahan or even from the Eagles and Howie Roseman is usually that there was a fatal mistake along the way where it's like, whoa, why can't we trust you? How do you not know what we're expecting for you to do after this many years in our room? And so I think once you find a guy like that and you think you're contending, then it's a deal where it's let's marry this guy and just lock him in for 4 or 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. I think the most concerning thing about the Niners right now is teams. Their teams are not good. And
it's unbecoming. That's unbecoming.
Have that.
No.
The Chiefs teams were awful last night too.
Well, and that comes back again to things you can control as a coaching staff that will drive you crazy and get you fired. And you know, these are own goals, right? You're trying to limit own goals, and because you realize in this league, there's enough teams that will beat themselves.
Randy, you want to spin us through the draft, our teams, our personal teams update?
Yeah, real quick. We got a tight race going. It's TC, you're currently out in the lead by a half point. The Dallas Cowboys tie could play a big factor in our team's competition this year. You have 20.5 points. Hoosh and I have 20 points, and Neil has 17.5 points. Neil had a big he's bounced back after a tough week 1, week 2, and he's starting to amass some points.
He got 6.5 out of a possible 8 points. Week 4. I do think he should be dinged for the Chiefs having such bad teams. They were, I don't know. That was so fun to watch last night of them getting called for actual penalties for the first time ever, and their fans like they owe me and just the NFL at large a mea culpa. Like what a rancid group of people. I do think Rashee Rice coming back is going to change the complexion of that team pretty dramatically.
I wish Rashee Rice was half as bad or half as good as the people that say he's going to change everything think he is, because
oh wow, you're not on. Okay.
I mean, he's fine, but I've heard just wait, Rashee Rice is coming back and you're not going to believe it then. And I'm like, I don't know. I've kind of seen him play enough that I kind of have an idea what that will do, and it won't hurt. Don't get me wrong. He seems
better than everybody that they've got right now. Like Hollywood Brown might be a vegetable.
Well, and that's a fun, and boy, what a odd decision by him not to be ready for the ball last night at the moment of truth. But just the anybody will do better than what we have right now sort of logic and sports talk is always fun for me, because just get us anybody in here. They can't be this bad.
What do you think of Chris Jones's effort at the end last night?
It had me wondering, were the Chiefs told to let him score to save some time? Like I almost wonder, like that doesn't make any sense. That dude commits. So to see him on a play that vital look like he was eating a ham sandwich, that felt really weird to me, almost to a point where, did they tell them to just let him score to save Patrick a few seconds? There's almost no other good explanation, but it kind of looked like his teammates were trying. So maybe he was the only guy with the call. I can't explain that one. I wonder if it got talked about in the locker room afterwards as I was celebrating a Brewers win.
How should I feel about the Jags? Like I'm very, very. It's complicated, because to take you through my psyche right now, I love the staff. I think like they have a different psychology than they've had. I've watched this team the last 8 years. The roster's not perfect yet. I think they're making progress. They're getting intangibly rich guys. They're hunting them up. But teams were awesome last night. They won that battle. They're running the ball, and they did it with a backup center for some of the game, backup tight end. Strange was out last night. Trayvon Walker didn't play. That was a massive loss. Defense likes to hit. Devin Lloyd, they've figured out finally how to use him in year 4. They've hit on some late rounders, some free agents, but Trevor, like that was the Trevor Lawrence experience in a nutshell last night. It was like, the delay of game penalty almost took 2 delay of game penalties down the stretch there at home, not throwing the ball away on that second or third down, just falling, but then, throwing a couple absolute dimes. And I know it's a complicated offense. I know there's a lot going on there, and there's going to be a level of comfort that he evolves into with it, but there's just something missing, or there's something not there as far as command and feel for the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly at its core what we deal with quarterbacks all the time, and the thing that is so hard to measure is does your supercomputer actually help you or hurt you as you're making these throws? Because for years we're all looking for 6'4", 230, stand in the pocket and deliver that ball to the deep out part of the field, or you can hit the seam ball on a line drive. And these are all the physical markings of a really strong quarterback, but at nowhere in there are we able to basically judge their computing skills and their judgment and their football IQ, which again takes us back to Purdy and Hurt, and just in the way that they generally make the right decision, and they generally know where the safety is, and they generally know how close they are to a delay of game, and they generally know when to do the hard count. And so these things,
he was like 2 or 3 yards over the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. Well, and that, I mean, that's the thing where it just is such a huge thing in this great sport at this unbelievable position that separates. And if you can ever find the guy who can do both, now you're talking Peyton Manning. Now you're talking, the best that have ever done this. And so, Aaron Rodgers for several years was at this level where he sees the game, he could throw it anywhere, but he also is smarter than every guy on the field. And that's an unbelievable advantage that you're looking for.
What's the best case comp? Like Jared Goff? He turns into Jared Goff?
Yeah, probably. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I love Jared Goff. I think that's your single most underrated quarterback in the league. So I probably did this last time we were on here, where I pounded the table that Jared Goff is wildly underappreciated, partly because he kind of looks dumb. And, again, going back to Mike McCarthy or Jared Goff, or so much of football perception is, does the guy I'm looking at right now look smart or dumb?
That's Poosh's whole thing with Trevor.
This worked against Eli Manning for his entire career, is that he appeared to be breathing through his mouth and therefore perhaps not quite as sharp as you would want him to be. And, that, of course, was combined with some decisions that weren't quite as sharp as you would want them to be. But so much of the football conversation every week is, does the guy coaching my team or quarterbacking my team appear intelligent or not? And that's where most of our takes come from if we were to be honest.
Which I've tried really, really hard to defend. My wife is not a Trevor fan. Trevor's got a lot of detractors here around town. His wife's got a lot of detractors here around town. That's part
I don't
of it
know
too.
about that.
That probably weighs on it pretty heavily. But I've tried. But like, when you marry that kind of nonchalant look,
yes,
to doing actually dumb things as well on a consistent basis, like that's pretty tough to overcome.
Yeah, it's weird how we're so viscerally affected by like long hair and headbands. And
I love the look. I don't have a problem with it at all.
No, well, I'm saying it hits different people differently.
Yeah.
But it, again, at its core, it affects perception, just like it did back in the day here in Dallas when Tony Romo, on a perfectly reasonable bye week before the playoffs started, decided to go spend 3 days in Mexico with his buddies because the team was off. And you can go to Mexico, but when you come back, you better win, or they're going to never forget that you went to Mexico during the playoffs. And these are the dumb things that all get in all of our heads about what each of these guys are all about. And in some ways it changes the perception of their entire career. That Dez Bryant, in his draft, there was the talk that they were working him out, and they wanted him to run for them before the draft. I forget which team, but he didn't bring his shoes. And so now, man, can we take this guy in the first round? He forgot his shoes to our appointment. Well, what does that have to do with his 10-year career? I don't know. I guess it tells us that he's irresponsible, but look at all those touchdowns. So
I mean, Bob, it's the same thing with Jalen Hurts getting benched in the national championship game.
Right.
Randy and I simply cannot get past that.
It's unforgivable.
And that's how scouts work. So it's not just us. It's literally how the scouts work, and it's one of the reasons I say this is a sport we all watch more than any other sport, and we all know the least about. It seems like we watch the most of this NFL, and we know the least about what actually decides winning and losing, which I suppose is what makes it so fun.
All right, good question from listener Joe Lukes. You have to pick one of these three to be your QB for the next 2 years: Hurts, Trevor, or Dak.
Oh,
It
Dak
was
by a mile.
it was very easy for me. I said Dak as well.
Yeah, Dak by a mile. Dak right now, and you want to talk about perception killing a guy, but if you're talking about right now playing the position at a extremely high IQ level, I mean, it's wild when you watch a guy's whole career that you can definitely see when the light goes on. And with Tony Romo and with Dak, it sort of is happening in the exact same spot. In fact, here's a piece of information you didn't ask for, but they're both at the exact same spot right now. 127 starts is Tony Romo's whole career, and Dak made 127 2 days ago. So now anything beyond this is Dak's career lasting longer than Tony, and they both sort of, maybe at the 100 game barrier or so, they both like became Jedis in terms of, I know this coverage, I know this pre-snap, I know what this audible can do. I know the answers to the test that you're about to ask of me. I know I've seen every situation, I've seen every coverage, and now I know how to do it. And Dak is there. And unlike Tony, Dak's body has not broken in half. And so I think that is why a Cowboy fan could be optimistic about what the next 3 or 4 years can be for Dak Prescott, because this is where like Phillip Rivers found the next level.
Sound for
This is where so many of these guys now get where they are.
That's very interesting, because I just clicked on another quarterback. I'm like, I wonder how many career starts this guy has. Well, this is games played I'm looking at, but Baker Mayfield has recently crossed. He crossed 100 games last season.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Just speaking of a guy that looks like totally comfortable all of a sudden.
Yeah, and he had different coordinators every year, and obviously he's played for a million teams. And if I need to apologize to anybody in the NFL, it's got to be Baker Mayfield, because I loved him out of school, and he disappointed me. And I thought the nonsense in Cleveland, both from him, but also the announcers trying to make him into a superhero and all this sort of thing. I don't know, but I sold all my stock in Baker, and I should have hung in there, because what he is now is honestly about as fun as watching any quarterback play in the league right now.
Randy, are you also on Team Dak?
Out of those three, yeah. I think that's right. We might hold our breath come playoff time a little bit, but I think as far as just Dak's proven, he can win regular season games. He puts up numbers, as Bob said. He's what, in his 10th year? Like he's seen it all at this point. I trust him the most, which is weird to say out of that cohort.
Yeah, I mean, I may owe Dak an apology once it's all said and done, but I don't know. I feel like there's just a body of work in the playoffs and in big games that's been tough to move past.
No, and I get it, and honestly, it's not any different than the Tony Romo body of work, and that's.
But I was a Romo guy. That was the that's the weird thing,
Well, and so was I, and stylistically they're different. And if I had one game, I would take Tony Romo for sure. But if I had one season where durability is going to come into play, I'd have to take Dak, because Dak has been injured, but it feels more freak than any sort of habitual chronic thing. And Romo, I want to say like the last 5 times he got hit really hard in the NFL, it screwed him up bad, to a point where like back surgeries, and he's got to be gone for 2 or 3 months, or he's done for the season, or the clavicle broke again. And so Romo's body just was not big and strong and durable enough. And maybe his conditioning could have been better, but maybe that's just the way we're all made, not to take linebacker shots in the National Football League. Our bodies are not created for that purpose. But I'll tell you, man, it's cool to see Dak reach this level of football IQ and at a point where his body can still do it, because I kind of think his best football is ahead of him. But maybe I'm projecting too much from the first 5 weeks of a season where the Cowboys had very little, if any, expectations, and they actually appeared to not suck. In fact, they might have one of the most entertaining offenses in the league right now, and I think that speaks to scheme, and I think it speaks to not believing the hype on a guy like George Pickens and just saying, let's bring him into our culture and maybe that will work out. Again, back to Dak.
That's credit to Dak.
Yeah, and so there's a lot to like here with the Cowboys offense. Let me be clear. The offense.
Well, we'll get there. We're going to dig into the Cowboys a little bit. A couple more quick hitters, and then we'll pay some bills here. The Boss. Do the Chargers make the playoffs, and are the Ravens cooked? Do they make the playoffs?
Man, I didn't see the Ravens falling off like this at all. I have pretty much just committed to the fact that the Ravens are always going to be good, and there is something horribly wrong with their defense, and it's starting to seep in many places, and that's ominous because they've invested a lot in that defense. They've put a lot of money on Hamilton and Roquan and Matabike, who hasn't been healthy, and just a lot of these dudes, and they're giving up a 40 burger every week, and that's just craziness. Now the Chargers, I think Big had it. You lose 2 franchise tackles like that, and football gets really hard really fast. But I still buy that Jim Harbaugh and that team probably can rise to the top of that division. Denver's going to be rough, and Kansas City definitely deserves the benefit of the doubt. But I do still think the Chargers probably have enough in the long haul. But injuries can sabotage a season for sure.
Yeah, I mean, not much more to add. I guess I'm curious how long the Ravens can go without just having to make a change at defensive coordinator, right? I got to think that's another week. I mean, if the Rams come in and hang 30, 40 points on them, I just feel like they're going to have to make a change. But I know they were missing a lot of guys against the Texans, so there is some injury stuff there. Not only Lamar, but like Bob said on the defense, it doesn't quite. Something's really off there, and I can't. It's weird, man. Like I said, like 2 weeks ago, I still love this team. Like you look at their roster, and I still feel like it's one of the most talented rosters, certainly in the AFC. But it just seems like the attitude, the energy, whatever those intangibles are just dreadful right now. So
what a weird division.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they kind of I mean, it's kind of like what the Bengals went through last year, where they had one side of the ball that was clicking, one side of the ball that was dreadful, and how that can just can lead you down a path that is not good.
Bengals, do they need to trade for Jameis? Why is the answer no?
I don't think it matters. I really don't think it matters. At least have
some fun, right? They got some fun toys. At least play with them.
Now, I will say this. Zach Taylor has said that they are considering options, which is the first time he's alluded to that. I think any possible change in quarterback would come from outside the organization. So Bengals, one, they're not known to trade in season. They're not known to give up real draft capital. So I'm not exactly sure how a trade would do work.
Anything.
Right. They're not known to really do anything. It stinks what's happened with Jake Browning. I thought 2 years ago when he stepped in for Burrow, he played good football, and the offense was decent. They had some really good games under him. This year, though, man, besides throwing the ball to the other team, I mean, just reading some Bengals stuff, it's like he's missing RPO reads. He's missing, checking into this look, checking out of that look. It seems like he's just not processing the game, and then you compound throwing the ball to the other team and just the turnovers. It's tough. I don't see it getting better, unfortunately. They did score 3 touchdowns in garbage time against the Lions in the fourth quarter a few days ago, so maybe that gives them a little bit of a spark, but
almost a sick backdoor cover.
Yeah, I the talk is around the Bengals is like, man, this could be a tank, and let's just get a high draft pick type season, which sucks. I really didn't think it would get here this quickly.
Bob, what would you do?
Well, I mean,
besides trade for Jameis, who you clearly hate.
Well, I don't think I hate him. I think I might be indifferent, but I will say nothing is more impossible than the mid-season quarterback acquisition and then getting him up to speed. It is so hard. If you could find a guy who already knows your language and get him in there, maybe. Everybody else, I feel like it's minimum 15 days to just get any understanding of what the guys in the huddle are going to be looking for. So to try to do it midstream, it's so freaking hard. Again, unless there's a guy with your exact system fit. So I don't think that would be Jameis, but it does sound like wild fun. The overall take on the Bengals is just how important it is for our league to try to keep quarterbacks healthy, because when quarterbacks get hurt, nobody likes it. Nobody has fun. Joe Burrow, that window is going to be open for a while, but he is getting up there in years already, and I can't believe we're having that conversation that Joe Burrow is older than you think. But boy, when you start losing multiple years to injury, it's just a bummer for anybody who loves football. Because I mean, take last Sunday, that game, Lions at Bengals, that was going to be the national game of the week. I'm positive of that. That was where Tom Brady was going to be. And then they saw no Burrow. Okay, well, let's go do Commanders and Chargers instead. So just the entire entertainment level of the league is better when the top 5 to 10 quarterbacks are out there every week. And it's just, like, what do you say to a team that loses a guy like that for an extended period of time? You just say, man, sucks for you. I sure hope it doesn't happen to my team, because, that's just the worst of all worlds.
I was just gonna say, I love that Bob says our league. Like he has an ownership stake. He has a vested interest in this thing being good. I love that.
It's very self-important, and I'm sorry for that. That's and if you catch me right, I'll also say that about our NHL and our NBA, depending on what day it is and how you get me. Maybe our Premier League.
All right, quick word from our sponsors at FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook app is your home for all your favorite NFL bets, from yards to touchdowns to who will win with FanDuel. Any play can be the play of the game. When the Eagles and Giants play on Thursday night, FanDuel is giving all customers a 50% PBT. Randy, this one's interesting, I think. I was expecting this line to be a little higher. Eagles minus 7.5 on the road on short rest.
Yeah, I think it's probably two things. The Eagles offense not looking great, and the Giants do have some talent on the defensive side of the ball. I don't know though, man.
Neighbors is out. Dart's
I wouldn't feel comfortable betting on Jackson Dart at this point. This would honestly be probably a stay away for my liking, but
tough spot.
Would probably ride with our friends in Philly here if I had to.
I was too chicken last night. I was gonna throw a Brewers money line, Jags money line and Brewers win, or Brewers cover.
Yeah.
Last night, I chickened out because I didn't want all the Chiefs fans and Chiefs fans in my mentions and all that stunting on me. So FanDuel.com/trapdraw to bet the Eagles versus the Giants, the 50% PBT. Play your game with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21, present in select states, or 18 or older, and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut.
Bob, I was just going to ask you, Bengals obviously aren't changing ownership anytime soon. I'd be shocked if Duke Tobin was shown the door.
Yes,
I
me
just
too.
feel like he's tied to the Brown family. So I guess my question is, have you seen enough? Would you go hard reset at the head coach and the coaching staff? Or how much of an issue do you think coaching plays with the situation?
That's a tough one because he does feel like more of the Garrett type than I would want in terms of in a situation where ownership is definitely a net negative. I need a strong personality that is willing to all right, here's my best example. I'm going to go across sports here for you for a second. There was a time in Luka Doncic's rookie season, which was Dirk's last season, that I got to sit right next to Mark Cuban for a game. And that was pretty fun. That was when Mark Cuban liked me more. But he invited me down to sit next to him for a game. And I didn't know what that meant, but I thought it sounded like the coolest thing of all time. And so I'm sitting down there, and literally young 18-year-old Luka was sitting there, and I had to move my feet so that he could put his feet out, because we're like at the joint in the L, and so I'm sitting here and Luka's right here, and I'm moving my feet, and I'm thinking how weird this is that this kid's supposed to be great, and wow, there's Dirk right there, and I'm seeing all these things. But next to me is Mark Cuban. And Mark Cuban cannot stop talking during a game. And he is telling Rick Carlisle, who's 15 feet away, basically to put somebody into the game. I forget who it was, but he wanted a substitution made, and he's the owner. And Rick Carlisle stopped. Like, I'm wondering, does Rick hear him, or does he act like he can't hear him? He stopped. He stared right at Cuban and said, do you want to coach the team, or should I? And Mark backed off and then said, you go ahead. And then Carlisle literally said, well, then shut the F up. And he, of course, used more colorful terms than I did. But my takeaway is, if you are coaching for an owner that is a net negative, there will be times where you have to have the guts to tell him to shut the F up. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have those guts, like Jason Garrett, maybe like I perceive Zach Taylor perhaps, then I'd like to try a much stronger personality to try to elicit different results. Of course, at the same time, he's not coaching Joe Burrow injuries. So it might be a horribly misguided, unjust decision to make, just because we're kind of tired of looking at him since he hasn't been close back to the Super Bowl since 2021. But that's my general feeling, that there are teams that almost have to overcome bad ownership. And for those, I want the strongest personalities possible.
The Jags are a good example.
They can kind of create their own environment,
I feel like Baselli and Gladstone and all that. I mean, Randy, Neil sent over the clip from the Bengals game, from the Broncos game of, I think the Broncos were rushing, 3 guys, and the Bengals used 3 guys to block 1 guy, and then both the tackles got beat, and it was like an instantaneous sack. It's like one of the most damning plays I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, that was tough. I actually remember that play, not to like excuse it, but I do remember, I think both edges just got a great jump because the play clock was, it was one of those where they just read the play clock and got off the line. But that's why I'm like, to me, it doesn't feel like getting an outside quarterback up to speed, like Bob said, is nearly impossible. Yeah. But with just how shaky their line is and how, quite frankly, bad the defense is, I wouldn't invest resources trying to marginally upgrade over Jake Browning this season. I would rather just, hey, let's play it out, and if we get a top 10 pick, let's try to do something with that.
I agree. I think, how's Mims been?
Okay. It certainly hasn't taken the leap that you would want him to take. They can't rush the ball. Like, I'm not smart enough schematically to tell you exactly what the issue is, but I do know when you can't run the ball,
Yeah.
and your defensive line can't generate consistent pressure, like they just get their asses kicked in the trenches. And that's such a horrible recipe to try to play winning football.
Yeah, and I'm finding this year with Dallas that scheme choices, and this goes back to Shanahan and McVay. The way you run the ball is way more scheme than I used to think. I used to think it was about we need to put some first rounders on the offensive line and open up some holes that you can drive a truck through. And the more I've seen what Clayton Adams has done here since coming over from Arizona to the Cowboys, and they've kind of reintroduced run concepts that are varied as opposed to like Mike McCarthy would have inside zone and outside zone. Well, here comes Adams and he's doing inside zone and outside zone, but he's also got, counter and pull and power lead and just all these, man blocking concepts. And there were times on Sunday when I was watching the Jets defense, they've got no idea where the ball is. And that's classic Shanahan, is that you just use pre-snap and eye candy and deception to just establish a running game, even though the Cowboys had 4 starters out on their offensive line on Sunday. Now, the Jets are crap. We know that. But 4 starters are gone on your offensive line, and you just ran the ball all day. And that's, to me, that's coaching, and I think you see that around the league that you can generate a run game without first round offensive linemen everywhere. Sometimes it's just a little imagination and deception.
Yeah, it seems like Bengals are also just like they pass in order to run, to open up the run game, and Chase Brown's that kind of back. And so when the pass game shuts down, he's just not a physical presence enough to be able to do anything.
That's right. And I think the whole, as Bob was saying, the whole scheme is built around like we pass first, and then that opens up the run game. And if the pass game's not working, you're totally screwed. There is no run game.
Right.
And honestly, like that's what the Browns were able to do week 1. The Browns always give the Bengals fits because they are a very, very good defense. And so they make the Bengals offense look very just stuck in the mud, and like they can't do anything. And yeah, they've done so much, and so much is geared around Burrow's strengths. And that's what sucks, is when you lose them now for extended time for the second time in 3 seasons. It's like you can't expect Jake Browning to come in and be Joe Burrow. And so I don't know. It's just very frustrating. It really does suck.
I feel bad. It's getting hopeless a little bit in Cincinnati.
It feels that way right now. That's what it feels like. Yeah.
Listen, we're not going to solve the Bills today. I can't figure them out. I don't even think we need to talk about that at this point. I want to flip it over and start talking. Let's talk some Packers, because Randy's going to Lambeau.
Yeah.
This weekend. And Bob, what should Randy expect at Lambeau? What does he absolutely need to do? What are some of your favorite elements? I've never been either. So
Lambeau's incredible, and Randy's going to be going in early October, and I'm going to expect the sun still shines in northern Wisconsin at that time of year.
I can say we have a good weather report if it holds for Sunday. Yeah,
gosh,
we're going to have just a nice kind of early mid-fall day.
There's literally nothing better than a sunshiny day at Lambeau Field. It feels like it's right out of a storybook. And I know everybody kind of has their own favorite stadiums and their own favorite scenes in sports, and I just want to pound the table that Lambeau Field is everything they say it is. And I believe visitors from all the teams will tell you that their trip up there delivered on a few things. Number one, the people up there are legitimately nice. You will never feel like when you go to the Northeast, which I have many times, and I thought I was going to die at the vet, and I'm sure the Eagles fans think it's funny, and maybe I deserved it, but I assure you I am low profile, quiet, sit by myself, and maybe wear a golf shirt with a team logo that's about this big on there, and I had 20 people want to fight me because I had the audacity to wear a golf shirt. And sports in hostile environments is extremely unpleasant if you just want to watch your team play and you're classy about it and you're not drunk or anything like that. And I will tell you that Green Bay is almost too nice in that regard. You will be offered a beverage. You will be shown, you need directions. You need anything. The people up there feel it's our job as cheeseheads to make sure people have the best time ever watching their team, hopefully lose to our team. But we want to do it in a very accommodating, hospitable manner. We don't want our stadium overrun. That's never a good look. And there was a time a couple years ago where it kind of looked like the Lions fans took over Lambeau. Okay, we don't want that. Don't everybody sell your tickets. But, if 10% of the other team takes over the stadium, we can live with that, and we can be nice to them, and we can not challenge them to fights, and we don't have to have a jail in our stadium and all these types of things. So that's element number one. Element number two is, with God as my witness, we will never put a roof on that place. We will never, ever, ever leave the elements. It is apparently our brand, since everyone around us is abandoning their brand. How do the Chicago Bears want to play inside, and the Vikings and the Lions? Thankfully, the Bills see it our way, but it is our birthright in 1919 to play football outside, and we will never walk away from that. Now, I will tell you as a personal anecdote, it's getting too cold for me, where now I am 53 and I'm like, I feel like Murtaugh and Lethal Weapon, where I'm just getting too old for this crap. And I just don't want to sit out there anymore for 3.5 hours and watch football between Christmas and New Year's like I have my whole life. But the outdoor aesthetic, the grass, the very field where Bart Starr went in the Ice Bowl, the same lower bowl, the same little village that doesn't make any sense, that would never have a professional sports team in your life. That is real. And Randy's going to visit it. And it's just the goofiest thing ever. When you are arriving in Green Bay, I want you to be on that freeway and just tell yourself that this little village has an NFL stadium in the middle of it. And you could put the entire village in the stadium and it would fit. It makes no sense. Like, you can see it from miles away. You can see this stadium, and it's like, approaching the Death Star, in Star Wars. Like, that can't be real. Like, how is it so big? Well, it's so big because there's literally no other buildings. I mean, there's like a supermarket in Green Bay, and and a couple Home Depots maybe, but there's nothing even close to this. It's so out of scale. It's so ridiculous. And then maybe my favorite thing about going to a game in Green Bay, and why I will never stop going, even if I do get out of December and start going in September more often, where old people can handle it better, is you park in people's houses, or on their lawns, I should say, not actually in the house. That'd be weird. But there is a back street that I will tell Randy about. I think you told me you already have parking lined up or something like that.
Well, yeah, Bob, I had been communicating with Bob already, and he said, you must park at this one lady's house. She is an institution. And I broke Bob's heart because I said, Bob, we're not going to have a car at all. So we're not going to have a need for any parking.
Well, it's not just one lady. She is an institution, but it's a whole street. It's several streets of it, really, but it's my particular street is just this most amazing moment, because you feel like you're walking in the 1960s. Like, all the houses are old and they're all very small and quaint and all that. And you park your car for $20. Down here in Dallas, it'll cost you $100 to park. Well, they just want a nice 20 to mess up their lawn. And then you're going to take a few steps away from this little, Norman Rockwell painting of what a house looked like in the 60s. And you're going to step aside and you're going to look over and you're going to see this giant NFL stadium that is less than 100 yards away. And it might even be 50 yards. I can't even tell, but it's so freaking close and so absurd that an NFL stadium is there. And you're walking down the street, and again, it's any old neighborhood. And then right to your right is your gate to go into. It's so anti every other NFL scene. That's all, and of course they have the corporate stuff and it's commercial and all that. I'm not saying they don't make money there, but I'm saying they've preserved what Green Bay originally was, partly because no one wants to live there even today. And they have these games 8 times a year where the city transforms from just another Midwest town to a vibrant NFL centerpiece. And I just love that it exists. When I was a kid, I would read about how it's impossible to sell the team or to move the team because it's owned by the local VFW chapter. And so if it ever moved, like $10 billion would go to the local VFW. And it's just the funniest thing ever. But it's so perfect. And yes, we take great pride. And even if our team stinks, we're like a living, breathing museum of what pro sports can and should be, in my opinion.
So a couple of things to add here, just for folks listening. We are staying at the Lodge Kohler, which is like right there. Hence the need. We are not going to have a rental car or anything. But one thing, Bob, we are doing, and you had encouraged me to do this. We're going to do the stadium tour and Hall of Fame visit on Saturday. Yeah,
so that's awesome.
I'm very much looking forward to that.
Who are you going with, Randy?
So my wife and I are flying and meeting Eric, my brother-in-law, and my sister Allie. So
awesome.
This will be our third. We're trying to make it a bit of a little tradition here. This will be the third time going to a Bengals road game for our group. We did New Orleans a few years ago. We did San Francisco 2 years ago. Last year we couldn't get anything because I got married and it was just too many logistics. And so we're back this year with Green Bay and Lambeau.
The Hall of Fame and Museum is great. There's a lot there. You get to, be on the stadium or be on the field for a little bit and go out the tunnel and all that. So, look, I know everyone loves their team and their stadium, but there is something about us who have been born up there who, at first we thought everybody's was like this, but the more places I go in the NFL and in pro sports, the more I appreciate the one I grew up with, which, by the way, I never went to till I was 22 or 23 because my dad didn't know how to get us in. And I got out of college and I said, mark my words, when I get a real job, I'm going to Lambeau Field. And I've never stopped going since. So it was something I grew up just seeing on TV or the museum tour was my only way into the stadium until I was like, 22 or 23 when Favre was their quarterback.
That's awesome. I will say the other thing, I'm sure CBS doesn't love this, but it's kind of in that national game of the week slot. It's a 4:25 p.m. Eastern kick. And that's good for us just because we want to take in the tailgate scene. We want to walk around and it just gives you a little bit more time before kickoff. So that'll be fun.
Please do the tailgate scene. That's important. And honestly, what you might want to do is not even have your own, but just kind of wander through the parking lot and see who you can see and maybe ask somebody for a brat. And I bet you they'll hand one to you and a nice beverage. And it's just, it's a really, really unique and fun place to go to a game. And I would highly recommend. And maybe, honestly, I was going to say when your team goes there, but I might recommend, as a third party, just pick a game, and then you're not stressed out about your team's fortunes. Maybe you're just enjoying your trip to a football museum.
Or if you're a fan of a shitty team like the Bengals are this year, that's part of it, Bob, is I'm not going to be feeling stressed or nervous. Yeah. It's kind of like, I expect them to get killed, and anything better than that will be a pleasant surprise.
100%.
Speaking of the game, like what's going on with the Packers right now, Bob? And what's I guess unpacking the Parsons trade a little bit for both sides as well. Like what's the downstream risk as well? Like, is it a unequivocal win right here from the start, or is there a downstream risk?
I mean, there's probably a risk. No team trading multiple firsts ever feels great about it. But I think if you get back a guy who's 26 and you see him as part of your team moving forward, and you've had the youngest team in the NFL for, I think, 3 straight seasons, this would be the time to say, okay, we don't need more draft picks right now. We've got a ton of them. Let's go try to win something. And, you know, it's been an uneven start. They looked like gangbusters right out of the gate in those 2 home games. And then they went to Cleveland and got humbled. And then you thought, well, they would respond big time in Dallas. But
I think
they,
that
you know,
Cleveland loss is gonna look better with age too.
yeah,
I
it
think
might.
that's a frisky Cleveland team that's gonna give some people problems the rest of the year.
Cleveland will claim some scalps, especially with that defense and that psycho Jim Schwartz as their coordinator. And you know, that's a very impressive defense, of course. And the Packers have been down 2 $80 million linemen that they signed here in the offseason. One was their own Zach Tom, their right tackle, and one was the left guard from San Francisco, Aaron Banks, who you know might have been overpaid to begin with, but neither of those guys have hardly played at all. And so, you know, again, teams can survive without multiple starters on their offensive line, but the Packers have not looked quite themselves. They haven't quite got Josh Jacobs going. There's a underlying current of Matt LaFleur evaluation that goes on with me, because I do think he's getting more conservative as the heat and the urgency ramps up a little bit. And so there is a little dance on how much does he trust Jordan Love and how much does Jordan Love deserve to be trusted. And so, you know, the back and forth, and LaFleur did a dance with Aaron Rodgers for several years. So now this is a different variation of it, where LaFleur kind of seemed like he was co-pilot with Aaron Rodgers, and Rodgers would pat him on the head and tell him, well, that's actually what I'm going to do is this. And now he's going the other direction, where he's got to teach a young quarterback, you know, when to hold them and when to fold them and all that. So I think he's been really conservative at times. I thought he got too conservative in Cleveland, and it bit him. And then he got too conservative against Dallas, and in overtime kind of looked like he was playing for a tie, which is insane for a team that has belief that they're a contender. So the bye week seems to come at a good spot. They're getting guys healthy. I think they're really good, but I also think Detroit is probably still better. And so now you're chasing, like, the NFC already has four-win teams, and you've already taken your bye. So they've got to get busy and start stacking wins, and make sure they're not going on the road right away in the wild card round. But it's a long ways to go. They're a very, very talented team, and Micah Parsons makes their defense as good as it's been in a long time, probably since they won the Super Bowl in 2010, when they had Charles Woodson and Clay Matthews kind of dominating on defense. Well, now with Micah Parsons and Xavier McKinney and Rashawn Gary, they actually look like they probably have a top 5 defense, but then Dak slices them for 40, or whatever it was, and that's probably not a good look if you're all that. They hardly touch Dak, and again, that goes to Dak's IQ, is that it wasn't because Micah wasn't getting there. Micah was, but Dak was outsmarting him, almost Tom Brady-ish in that game, where you're just not going to sack me. I'm going to get the ball out, and I'm going to keep moving the chains, and no matter how fast you beat your guy, it's not going to be fast enough to get to me.
Is this the first week where we'll see true Micah Parsons, both knowing the scheme, healthier, well rested? Like this is
Maybe,
really his
but
coming out party.
man, I think he's been great. I really do.
Yeah.
So maybe my bar's too low or whatever, but I think Mike has been exactly who he was in Dallas, which was every week dominant. And some weeks it's 2 sacks and some weeks it's none, because that's football. But every week it's 8 pressures and 3 or 4 quarterback hits, and he's a force of nature. And anybody telling you he's not is coping with the idea that he's not here in Dallas anymore, or Jerry didn't want to pay him. Now we can have the argument: should you be paying a pass rusher that much money? But in the Packers case, they're like, well, we're the 3rd youngest team, or we're the youngest team in the league for 3 straight years. We don't have any contracts. So we're not worried about our cap room like you are. And
they've got so much depth at receiver.
Yeah.
Like almost to a fault, to where they can, like, they're not really going to have to pay anybody if they don't want to.
No, now the problem with that would come down to, at those moments, do you have a guy? Green Bay had Jordy, and then they had Devontae Adams, and so they've had the guy in 3rd and 7 who's getting the slant to move the chains and keep the game alive. We knew. Now it's, well, I might be coming to you, it might be coming to you. And so there might be an identity thing that they need a little more of a pecking order, but you're right. It's a good problem to have, is that you've got a lot of dudes that you feel good about. And I kind of think their most reliable weapon might be Tucker Kraft, their tight end.
Yeah. A quick word from our friends down at Omni Hotels and Resorts. We're actually going to Omni Frisco here in a couple weeks. The official hotel of No Laying Up. The heart of fall is here, and that means it's prime time to put that leftover vacation time to use. Sneak away for a golf trip, whether you're chasing cooler temps in the mountains, dialing up a weekend with your crew. Omni's 12 golf destinations offer plenty of ways to make it happen. Looking for elevation? Omni Grove Park Inn in Asheville serves up mountain views and a Donald Ross Classic, while Omni Bedford Springs is home to the #1 ranked public golf course in Pennsylvania. I can co-sign that. That place is awesome. Pair that with the recently renovated Oak Marsh course at Omni Amelia Island, or the iconic layout at Omni Homestead. Randy, you were just there.
Yes, I was there. It's a wonderful golf course there, the Cascades. It actually just hosted the U.S. Senior Women's Amateur back in September. TC.
How about that? So I'm sure the leaves are popping right now, but you get ahead on trips for next year as well. I know Barton Creek down in Austin too. They got one in Tucson.
That's a good spot.
So, and then we got the Omni Generation Cup as well, back for season 2 with qualifiers running every month at each Omni golf destination. Grab your family and tee it up for a day of fun and competition to solidify your spot in the national championship next spring. You're due for a fall or winter getaway. Head to omnihotels.com/golf and play the possibilities. All right, flipping it on its head. Let's talk Cowboys.
Yes.
I want to talk, we'll talk Parsons trade. I want to talk a little bit about the documentary. Randy, I don't know if you've seen it yet.
No, I have not. So I'm curious, either you or Bob need to make the sale to me to invest the time to watch it.
We will. And then lastly, I just want to hear any great Jerry stories you have on the tail end of that too.
Okay.
Let's talk about the trade and Schottenheimer and Daddy.
Well, I want to start with Schottenheimer because very skeptical about the hire. Anytime somebody gets hired and nobody in the league seems to be interested in even talking to him, we all get very leery because we all want the guy everybody's trying to hire, like Ben Johnson. And then nobody wants the guy that nobody's trying to hire because what are you doing? And then he has a polarizing last name because his dad was a polarizing coach as well. And you have all of the, I forgot. You also have 25 years of coordinating and being associated with
weird stop at Georgia.
Letting Russ cook and all the stuff that goes into the Schottenheimer stew had me feeling a certain way about the guy. And I'll be honest, he feels like a guy who knows what he's doing. And again, we have early indicators, but his offense is drastically different than the one he was OC for with Mike McCarthy. And I always kind of felt like he was just Mike McCarthy's little helper and wasn't really asked for his own takes and his own spin on things. And just, I need you to carry out what I need you to do. So do you want the job or don't you? And since taking over, he's been a huge talk culture guy, and that always makes us nervous if you're trying to sell us on football friends, family, and all of that versus how are you going to fix this offense. We all get leery about that, but man, he sells the culture in a way where you're like, gosh, is this actually working? And again, if I may circle back to trying to overcome ridiculously bad ownership, which I've always felt the Cowboys have, despite people telling me, no, he's the best owner in sports. I'm like, no, he's like the gorilla in Donkey Kong throwing barrels at you as you're trying to do things. Like it's just one obstacle after another, and it's all because Jerry kind of likes to see you in pain or something like that. Like the nonsense that Jerry Jones empire gives his coaches makes me think that I can't have Jason Garrett as the coach because Jason's like agreeable. He's like, man, thank you so much for letting me coach here. And I'm like, sometimes I need Rick Carlisle to look down and tell kids to shut the F up. And, and so there's a lot there. I don't know if Schottenheimer would actually ever confront Jerry Jones, but I think he sort of has set this up where it's just us guys and we're not worried about this, and maybe like the manager in Major League, we're kind of doing this in spite of all the nonsense around us.
It.
Yeah, and I don't know. He talks in an unbelievably good game. And then you see the X's and O's, and you see how good Dak looks, and you see, I mean, dude, if you wanted, and I feel bad about this because Jason Garrett really is like the nicest guy in the world. So let me preface it. Let me preface it.
He's been in fuego with the dancing lately too.
Let me preface it by saying I feel bad every time I say horrible things about him. But an earmark of the Jason Garrett era for me is every time there was an injury of any level, this team just couldn't function. You know, like, oh my gosh, like you didn't tell me there were going to be injuries in the National Football League. What are we supposed to do? Like, I thought we were going to get our 22 starters the entire season. And I just don't think they ever were able to overcome obstacles with any sort of like, no, next man up. And that's not just a dumb cliche. We actually mean get out here and do what we've trained you to do. And so they're down 6 starters on offense, 6, and they've been down, you know, that many for the Packer game and for the Jets game. And this offense scores every drive. Like, it's the craziest thing right now. Now, is it sustainable? We'll see.
I will say it helps when you have like the greatest kicker of all time.
That doesn't hurt.
It's incredible. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right.
He is amazing.
Yes, but they're not turning the ball over. They're running the ball. Javonte Williams looks like, you know, he's a find. And so you start looking at all these different pieces and you're like, how did you get him for nothing? How did you get George Pickens for nothing? How did you get, you know, and you start to say, man, this might actually be coming together around a franchise quarterback and a franchise wide receiver. And then CD goes down and it's like, yeah, no problem. We're going to score 40 against Green Bay without CeeDee Lamb. And boy, if CeeDee Lamb comes back, now they can't crowd George Pickens. So anyway, the Schottenheimer run so far is hitting the ceiling of what I expected in year one. And maybe that's cynicism building up over 3 decades of following this franchise, but he's been really, really refreshing. Now, clearly,
stopping the run. I mean, Jerry just wants to stop the run, obviously.
Dude,
Coach Flus.
There's so much nonsense, and we become so normalized to it. And yeah, that post-Micah trade press conference where we can scheme pass rush, but we need guys in here to stop the run is, of course, exactly the opposite of what any football coach will tell you. Jerry's going to be Jerry, and what that means is he has to be the star of his own movie every day of his life, and that explains the documentary on Netflix, by the way, and that explains why he has to do like 3 radio shows a week, and it explains why he has to be interviewed in the locker room of his team while his head coach is doing his post-game head conference at a podium where nobody really attends because Jerry's talking in his locker room. Like, what the freak does an owner have to talk about after a game that he did not participate in? But that's Jerry Jones. He can't believe how famous he is, and it is so important to him every day of the week. So that takes us to the documentary, which...
Can I sorry, I am getting
please.
flooded with some breaking news. The Bengals have acquired a quarterback. Would you guys like to take any guesses?
Gosh.
Russell Wilson.
It's not Russ.
Who's even out there?
Yeah.
Who'd they get?
AOC.
They're getting Wacko for Flacco.
Wow.
They're bringing in Joe Flacco.
No way.
Yeah. I have not seen what they've given up to the Browns.
Wow. The Browns have to, this is a very, very rare inter-Ohio deal, right?
Oh,
Do these teams deal with each other very much?
No, not at all.
Just driving down I-71, huh?
Yeah. So sorry, the documentary. Yeah,
I think that
honestly, Randy, I went in with like not knowing what to expect, and it was awesome. It was like it was everything that I thought The Last Dance was. I mean, it's that good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the access that they got to Jerry, I mean, some of it's Jerry glazing, but like it kind of lets you be the judge of that. And then
Right.
Michael Irvin is just he's the most electric, magnetic personality in this thing of anybody I've ever watched before in anything. It's incredible.
Yeah, and it gets progressively more insane as we go. So you're going to start and you're like, wow, this is good, and then you're going to keep going, and it becomes cracked by about episode 4 or 5 or 6, and it just, you'll watch it all super quick. If you lived it, you almost need to watch it to remember how insane it was. And if you didn't live it, you must watch it to see that it really happened. Like it's, I don't want to overstate how important it is to like assess sports in modern times. But I mean, The Last Dance was really about, a basketball team that was just immortal. This is about a self-sabotaging football franchise that had a chance to be immortal, probably did, but maybe only like Tiger Woods was able to achieve so much and still underachieve. Like Tiger's a rare guy that he won so much, and we're all saying, man, if you would have done this and this and this, you could have doubled what you did. You were that great. And with the Cowboys, I think it's reasonable to say that they left a 5-peat on the table. Like they and by the way, it's completely because of organizational lack of control. Like if there was an adult in the room after Jimmy Johnson, they would have probably won 3 more in a row. They won 1 more. They took a year off. They went to the 94 championship game, lost to the Niners. Then they came back and won their 3rd out of 4. And then they completely imploded in the year Green Bay won in Super Bowl 31. And honestly, they won 27, 28, and 30. And in my opinion, they should have won 29 and 31 as well. And so how can we say a team that wins 3 Super Bowls in 4 years underachieved? And yet, I think when you watch it and you see how the only adult left in the organization once Jimmy left was Troy Aikman. And he's trying basically to play traffic cop with his teammates, and the coaching staff was chaotic. And Barry Switzer is doing his own bit. And by the way, Barry is using all of Jimmy's staff who kind of hate Barry because their coach is gone, and Jerry is just lobbing grenades everywhere, and just guys are getting arrested, and they got the White House, and you will
Charles
not.
Haley.
Oh,
I mean,
Charles.
and just like I feel like I understand the NFL at large better, like the modern NFL.
Yeah.
And I feel like I understand America better. Like it's just this commentary on the 90s a little bit, and kind of on our country of like we kind of just lost control at some point.
And the fact it's concurrent with The Last Dance. Like it's the same years. Sports was going insane in those years with those teams. And remember, that's the same time. And you guys may or may not care about this, but I sure do. Like the Super Mario Penguins were doing their thing in those early 90s as well. And I guess that would have been like the Blue Jays into the Braves and onto the Yankees years. And I mean, it's just, sports was so insane. You mix in the OJ chase and just all the stuff in those years, and those like 6 or 8 years of but the Cowboys, I wasn't here. Like I didn't get here till 98. I was going to school and living in Virginia at the time. And so I'm like in Redskins country.
Correct.
Well, yes, I was at Liberty. And then I was in the real world for 4 years after that. But I was covering like the Redskins. Rest in peace. And so my entire time there, all we're fixated on is these insane Cowboys and how they're destroying, the entire NFC, but they're also, getting arrested, and, the Dallas Crack Boys, and just everything that people said about them back then. And again, Netflix, I realized they paid Jerry Jones and his family like $50 million for the rights to this. So I wanted to hate it. I wanted to ignore it. Then I watched it and I'm like, son of a gun. this is really freaking good. And
Even just the staging on the interviews.
Yes.
Just the lighting.
Yes.
The painting.
It's expertly made. It feels disingenuous as somebody who covers the modern Cowboys as sort of a distraction to what really was, the modern day Cowboys, the underachievers who haven't done anything in 30 years. But it actually helps explain a lot of both the Cowboys and maybe sports in general. If you had that story in your past, you got to watch it, Randy, and then you got to tell me what you thought about it, because I can't wait to see what you think.
You guys have sold me. Yeah, I'm in. Might actually download it, fire it up on the flight to Green Bay this weekend, honestly.
Yeah, and they got a lot of dudes. They got pretty much everybody. I know they didn't get Moose, but everybody else sat down and it was crazy.
I feel like I learned. I mean, it put Troy Aikman's career so much more into context. It put and just his psychology. Like I always enjoy his analysis on games as well, and just learning about him, Emmett, all of it. But it's just, Bob, how did you get up to speed then, coming in basically immediately after this chaotic 6-7 years? How could you possibly learn all of that context?
Luckily, they were on everybody's radar who was who was in the sports scene. So it wasn't, there are times where you move someplace, and like, for instance, me moving here for the Texas Rangers, like, okay, I don't know anything that the Rangers have ever done, really, except when they were playing my team my entire life. Luckily, the Cowboys, like the Bulls, were such a national story that I had a reasonable feel for the situation. What I wasn't expecting, of course, was knowing so many of these guys personally and working with them. Like the Troy Aikman thing, honestly, and I feel bad about this, but when I was a young kid getting into sports radio, I was so unfair to Troy Aikman. Like, he was like the symbol of everything horrible about the Cowboys. And just, back then he was, honestly, he was called soft by people. Not, I think I remember Peter Brown, if that name rings a bell, but on ESPN, his shtick, and I think he was a Philadelphia guy, was just to absolutely hammer Troy at all times. And now looking back through personal interactions, for sure, but also just understanding what he was doing here as like the only adult in the organization, and also like this perfect quarterback in terms of decision making on and off the field, and leading a team, and making sure that they won a lot, and he did. I think he's somehow gone from absurdly overrated to absurdly underrated over the course of my time here in Dallas. And maybe history won't remember him as much because he doesn't have the gaudy stats that other people do. But just all these people coming to life personally for me has been, it's a very weird thing where if young Bob knew what older Bob was going to run into in life, he probably would have been more careful flying off with some of my hot takes right out of college. Like I knew everything, because I didn't.
Let's talk Irvin.
Yeah.
That was the one for me that was like, holy shit, this guy is the biggest force of nature I've ever seen before, both on and off the field.
There's no doubt. And he has 9 lives, in the sense that at different points in his career, he's done something to sort of ruin his career. And then every single time, within 12 months, it blows over and everybody's like, this guy's too good on TV. We got to get him back. I mean, I think he's too magnetic. He's like, to this day, I mean, how old is he now? He's got to be 60, right? He's got to be maybe a little older than 60. I don't know, but you're talking about a guy.
He's 59.
Okay. Yeah. First of all, he's ripped. He and Troy both still have their professional athlete body to a certain extent. They're in the gym every day. They're carrying around the water bottles to stay, in that perfect, vein popping sense of physicality. And then Irvin doesn't have an off switch. You can see him down there on the Hurricane sideline, still acting like he thinks he's a player. And there's nobody like Michael Irvin. He's never had to grow up. He probably never has grown up. But every teammate will swear by him. And of course, he made all the big plays at all the big moments, and he conducted himself in life, which Randy will find out in this documentary, where nobody wants to talk about the White House until they get to Michael Irvin, and he's like, "What do you want to know?" Like his
nothing's off limits.
Nothing's off limits
at all. It's incredible, and he does it so colorfully and descriptively and charismatically.
Like he probably knows there's a chance he, in an alternate life, he's not even alive right now, and just every day is him being maximum Michael Irvin. And then you got Dion, and then you got, just all these characters going on. And again, to see Troy interact with them as he is the traffic cop who's trying to keep, all the cats lined up so we can go play a football game.
Troy a racist.
Just the dumbest thing. Like Troy, all these guys, they're all a little crazy, but they share this common history where they just ran the NFL. And like I said, the only thing that haunts them is, how did we not run the NFL for 5 more years? So it's wild. And in a way, they all feel indebted to Jerry, but there's still this, this weird relationship with Jerry that I think is still there to this day. Like, there's still issues. There's still, friction. There's nothing like the Dallas Cowboys. I have to admit, I was cynical when I got here, but it's been really fun covering them for all this time because it's so uniquely ridiculous.
What's your favorite Jerry story? Doesn't it have to be the most spectacular or funny, but like, what's the most emblematic Jerry story?
I mean, my takeaway from Jerry is so our radio station definitely makes fun of famous people at a high level. And as our honorable president demonstrates, most powerful people do not have a sense of humor about being made fun of relentlessly. And we have a guy on the station who anybody who follows a ticket knows that our station is not our station without Gordon Keith. And Gordon is a guy who will tell you he knows nothing about sports, but he's an insanely funny guy who can mimic almost any voice he's ever heard. And so I tell you all this to say, Gordon is like the funniest guy I know, and his fake Jerry is incredible. And I think if you would just Google fake Jerry, you could probably find tons and tons and tons of stuff of him mimicking Jerry Jones at a high level, and everyone's used it. The Fox pregame show has used it over the year. So he's renowned for it. But my point to all this is, despite powerful people not being able to laugh at themselves, Jerry Jones, to my knowledge, has never, ever, ever lost his temper with people basically making him into a complete buffoon. So I will tell you, I've crossed Mark Cuban, and I've seen Mark Cuban crossed. I've crossed Tom Hicks, and I've seen Tom Hicks crossed by others. Tom Hicks has written my boss to try to get me fired. Mark Cuban has definitely done that with coworkers of mine. These are powerful guys, but they are not 10% as famous as Jerry Jones, in my opinion. Maybe Cuban is now, who can say? But the point is, they have lost their temper and tried to get peons fired from their career for that. Jerry Jones has never, in my opinion, ever lost sight of the fact that there's no such thing as bad publicity. and that he rolls with it to a point where his family members want recordings of fake Jerry to sort of play at family functions and all laugh at dad, that sort of thing. So in some ways he feels like football Trump in that, he's trying to gather all the power and do all the things that, and don't be wrong, Jerry is trying to gather power and he is trying to do things his way and he is trying to rule the world. But my biggest takeaway from Jerry and what I would tell people that don't know him is I've never seen him show his teeth and like try to now famously last year he did lose his temper on their flagship and it did sound like he wanted to get one of the radio guys fired. So I don't know if there's a backstory there where he finally snapped in his 80s, but I do want to say in all these 30 years, my biggest takeaway is he seems to actually not mind if radio guys or media people absolutely try to barbecue him to the public. Like he's actually okay with that.
He's in on the joke.
Yeah, in a weird way, I guess he laughs all the way to the bank, which he has.
And he seems like he genuinely like he may not be smart in the ways that people ascribe to smart people. He's like extremely street smart.
Well, he's obviously knows his way around a bargaining table, and he's obviously changed the NFL at a level that we could never imagine, where he has made them so much money. I mean, just honestly, the way he played the Fox deal originally and how it's multiplied and multiplied and multiplied. Jerry Jones is a god to other NFL owners. Like they ask him for advice. They ask his, so he is a great businessman, but his fatal flaw, in my estimation, it would be that he can't get out of his own way. Like he wants to be taken seriously as a football man, and he always has, and it's always ruined his football teams. Is that he would rather lose his way than win giving into what everyone else says he should do, which is why he's never really hired any alpha head coach but Bill Parcells since Jimmy Johnson. And Bill Parcells was only hired, and I swear to you, only hired so that he could get a stadium vote approved. And Parcells was here at the precise time he was trying to get the Death Star approved, and he needed the taxpayers to pick up half the bill. And the second the vote went through, he started acting like Jerry again to Bill Parcells, including ramrodding Terrell Owens onto Parcells' roster. And the second he did that, Parcells was working on his exit strategy to get out of here, because you're not putting players on my team that I don't want on my team. And so other than that, he's always hired people that make him comfortable. And that's why we universally sort of reject anyone he comes up with from his inner circle to hire, whether it be Dave Campo or Jason Garrett or Wade Phillips or now Brian Schottenheimer. Mike McCarthy was a little weird. Like, why are you hiring him? You don't know him. But it kind of appears that Mike McCarthy was just super grateful to be coaching for him and never really bucked back. But he does not want a coach to disagree with him. And that will keep the Cowboys from ever achieving what they could achieve, because let's be honest, the Cowboys have more resources than anybody by fivefold. And even though there's a cap, there's not a cap on your coaching staff. There's not a cap on your front office. There's not a cap on your resources. Like Jerry Jones could literally buy the NFL. He could take the 5 best head coaches and make them his coaching staff. And he could money whip every one of them if he wanted to, but he doesn't want to. He wants to, in the words of every old guy on his deathbed, he wants to do it his way. And he would rather fail that way than succeed your way. And by the way, if failing is buying a franchise for less than $200 million, and now it's worth, like, you couldn't buy the Cowboys for $20 billion right now. They might only be valued at $15 billion, but you're not getting them for that. And so he said, famously, he was asked, I might have told you guys this before, but let me end this rant with this. They finished 8-8 3 straight years from 2011 through 2013. And in each of those games, in each of those years, they lost the final game to a different team in the NFC East to miss the playoffs each year. So 9-7 would have won the division. And in 2011, they lost to the Giants. And in 2012, they lost to, the Redskins. And in 2013, they lost to the Eagles. So each team in a play-in game, they lost in the final year. So the last time it was a home game. The other two were road games. But in 2013, they lost a home game to the Eagles with Kyle Orton as the quarterback. And they lost like 24-22. Horrible day. Romo was hurt again. Just everything's a mess. And he's being interviewed after the game. And he was asked by a reporter if you felt embarrassed that you lost this final game for a third year in a row and that you're 8-8 yet again. Are you embarrassed by this? And Jerry looks at him and then looks up at the stadium he's standing in. And he said, let me ask you, do you think you could stand in a stadium like this and be embarrassed if you were me? And the reporter was sort of confused that a building would actually be your victory point. But then Jerry, as another person asked the question, Jerry cut him off and went back to the reporter and said, the answer is no. And so, every year when Forbes released the list that says the most valuable franchise, not just in the NFL, but on planet Earth, is the Dallas Cowboys. That to him is winning. That to him is his title. He wins it every year. He's won it every year for probably 20 straight years when they passed Real Madrid or Manchester United or whoever it was. And they became the single most valuable franchise in sports. And here's the point, guys. It doesn't matter if they win or lose. The value keeps going up. They're always on the prime TV spots. And they are unique in that they're the only franchise in organized sports that doesn't even have to win for people to keep caring about them. And I can't explain why it is, but it is.
Gosh.
I'll take a breath.
And is Steven the heir apparent?
Yes. And is he any better? Probably not.
Does he have any sort of his own personality, or is he just kind of like smirking and along for the ride, which is what
we thought he would be different, and there are many cases where dad passes and the son has his own fresh ideas, and it's totally different. The one I always use is William Wirtz and Rocky Wirtz with the Chicago Blackhawks. The second William Wirtz died, the Blackhawks became a dynasty. Like, they instantly started winning, and it was a sleeping giant. And like, well, what happened? Well, we decided to do things differently because dad was maybe holding back the entire franchise. I think that could happen here, but the longer Steven's here, the more we see he's kind of another version of his dad, which means he really wants to win every negotiation and ends up making them worse. And they kind of screw up their cap and they make it it's a weird deal. Maybe Steven has his own thoughts, but honestly, Steven's been waiting so long for this job that he's getting older and older and older. And so, I don't know, the idea that it's fresh, it will certainly be an interesting day, even though Jerry will probably outlive me and I'll never see it. But it'll certainly be an interesting day when the franchise finds new hands. But I think mostly by now we are thinking it's a slightly different version than the version we're currently seeing, which probably means they'll still be really good at making money, but probably not really good at contending for Super Bowls.
The fact that he and Jimmy go all the way back as far as they do, and the fact that Jimmy was such the coincidence that Jimmy was such a good coach and Jerry bought the Cowboys and brought Jimmy in, and it's crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, how about the fact that they're college roommates?
Exactly.
On the Arkansas national championship team. Like, I want to see a world where Jerry Jones is a starting offensive lineman on a national championship college football team. But I guess it happened. I can't deny that they have pictures and footage. It looks like it happened. I wasn't alive, but
Bob, it's always surreal to talk to you about this stuff. So I had a boss at Marriott when back in the, early mid 2010s, 12, 13 years ago, Andy, if you're listening, and he would always listen to The Ticket. And so I listening to you for much longer than I even knew who you were. You were just kind of this guy, and getting you wound up about Dallas sports is just Oh, like you are truly a master of your craft, and you've landed in the exact perfect spot to master that craft.
Well, thank you. I love it. I never dreamed I would be in Dallas. In fact, I kind of thought saying bad things about the Cowboys in the early '90s was going to prohibit me from ever being in the city limits. But amazingly, I got hired here as a 25, about to be 26-year old, and it's just been incredible. It's such a great sports city. It's so underrated as a sports city. It's unique, but there's interesting stories, and the fact that I've been able to make a living, honestly, talking about the Dallas Cowboys. Again, young little cheesehead Bob who just wanted to see the Packers in the playoffs once in my life. Absolutely cannot believe that I've become, in some ways, like a Cowboy historian, because I never get tired of these topics, and even today, guys, I run a second Twitter account that is the 1975 Cowboys day by day activities, because I read the newspapers of 50 years ago today every day, and I post what I find, and that is the Staubach Landry, Cowboys of way. Randy White's a rookie, and you're just going through that group. I mean, every generation has given us such rich football history in this city that you can never exhaust all of it. It's endlessly enjoyable.
But you do the work too. It seems like you love the work, and you do you're in the mines every day.
Well, how hard
your
is
hands
it? It's
dirty.
football. It's the best.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess last question from me, at least. Randy, I don't know if you got anything else. How long is Nico gonna last with the Mavs? What's going on there?
Speaking of endlessly fascinating,
Yeah.
it's a very, very weird time with Mavericks basketball, and to completely unpack it would probably take us a lot longer than you guys are interested. But the guy traded Luka,
casino stuff and all that stuff as well,
then
right?
won the lottery. Yes, the Adelson family is its own side path that is wild, and now they're putting together a basketball team that on one hand looks pretty good, but also looks like they're digging in the wrong spot to try to build this defensive juggernaut based on guys who are, well, Anthony Davis obviously has played his best basketball. Kyrie Irving probably has played his best basketball. These guys are both high mileage guys, but then they just haul off and win the lottery for a generational talent like Cooper Flagg, and they're landing on their feet. People are like, admit now that the NBA lottery is rigged, and I can't, because I don't believe in that, but I also see how suspicious it looks. So there's a lot happening.
Has the temp come down at all, or is it still fever pitch?
Yeah, I think the temperature now, we have two. It felt like everybody hated Nico about 6 months ago, and now it's almost half and half. Like, let's say 60% of the populace have said, okay, if you promise to give us a generational superstar at the age of 18, we promise to sort of move on and look forward to a future with Cooper Flagg. And then the other 40% are still saying, screw you, I'll never cheer for the Mavericks again. You traded, my favorite athlete of all time for no reason, and he probably was more than happy to play his entire career in Dallas, and you guys sabotaged him about 7 months after he had the team in the NBA Finals pretty much by himself. And so you want to talk about
didn't even get a good return for it.
No, didn't even shop him. I mean, that's kind of the Micah story, but times 5 is that we didn't really even capitalize on trading a generational talent. And so, now you're linked forever with this timeline with these older players and Luka trying to win in LA, which will only make it worse here. The fact that Nico was Kobe's chief operative with the Lakers, wondering, was he a Lakers sleeper cell the entire time? And will he be running the Lakers in 5 years, wildly enough? And so there's, like I said, it's a wild sports city, boys, for sure.
Bob, I got one question, quick one. It'll get us out of here. Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones? Are either of them for real? Are you buying either? What do we make of?
I buy Sam Darnold because I always did at USC, and because his work in Minnesota and his work in Seattle seem consistent with a guy who has developed and learned and sort of now is growing into what he can do. Now, where would I rank him in the league? I don't know, but is he a proper starting quarterback worth paying? If the Vikings are going to let him leave for nothing, then yeah, I buy that. The Daniel Jones one is a little more difficult because I'm not sure on his draft year. I was terribly convinced, and I don't know that I've seen a ton that has been super compelling since then. So having to choose between the two is not hard for me. I think it's Darnold, but maybe that's just confirmation bias that I had Darnold so high coming out of the 2018 draft. And the fact that Darnold and Mayfield are both doing this, is like they're on their fourth or fifth team at this stage of their careers, which is almost an identical time. It's clearly Mayfield should be trusted more, but they're both kind of what we expected them to be, which is maybe a different version of Goff, sort of being what we expected him to be as the 1-1. Sometimes it takes 7 or 8 years, and maybe that's hope for many, many quarterbacks along the path, that not everybody just shows up like Joe Burrow and just starts winning almost immediately. It's such a hard thing to do for a living. So I would say Darnold.
Randy, what are you saying?
I was going to say I largely agree. I think come playoff time, it's a bit of a different discussion, but certainly regular season, I feel like Darnold, after last year and what he's doing this year so far, is probably the pick. But it's fun seeing the Colts look rejuvenated, and I'm not really sure what the ceiling of that team is, but they're fun now.
I don't get why the Vikings just let him walk. I just don't understand with the franchise tag. Why didn't have him and McCarthy to sort of try
especially with Wentz getting reps now and looking like the exact same Wentz that tried to do too much and just fails at the basic stuff.
And maybe
that was I never bought McCarthy either.
No, but maybe that's the takeaway, guys, is that the more we look at this, the more we see that like when I talk about Jalen Hurts, I say I don't think he's asked to do the same things as most quarterbacks, and therefore it's tough to rank him with the other quarterbacks because he doesn't have to answer the same question. But what if that's actually the goal for any coaching staff? Is we want to make our offense maybe not quarterback proof, but we want to ask way less of him than we traditionally ask our quarterbacks. Like Randy's come back to this a few times during this conversation is, in the regular season, but let's see it in the playoffs. And maybe the answer is we've put so much on quarterbacks to raise everything in the playoffs that maybe the smart coaches of modern times are realizing we have to make this more of a us than just him sort of thing if we want to sustain winning, even if he gets hurt or even if he wants to be traded. We have a system in place, almost college-like, where we ask less of our franchise quarterbacks, all the while paying them absurd amounts of money. So that doesn't make any sense. But it does feel like the smartest teams are designing things to try to ask less of their quarterbacks, and maybe they're profiting more, and maybe Nick Sirianni's a genius and I just don't want to admit it. I don't know.
That's my hope here in Jax, is that we can do that and take the pressure off of Trevor, and it doesn't matter if he's the guy or not, right?
Yeah, well, it makes sense. It's just something we've never quite been able to master as football scientists.
Yeah. Well, Sensei Bob, this was a tour de force.
I love it. It was the best. I can't wait to see when Randy gets to work on his Netflix and he gets to see the neighborhood with the old lady. I can't wait to hear him report back on all this.
Big weekend. Yeah. I'll share some pictures and thoughts with you for sure.
Please do.
Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Is a gambling helpline, ma.org, or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. The Seamsters will be back later this week and to talk all things playoff baseball. Randy, until then.
Yep. Always a pleasure, TC. Cheers.